Victory for free speech. The Supreme Court striking down Arizona's public financing law today, calling it a restriction on free speech. The law had the government matching private campaign dollars. The Supreme Court decision puts law in half a dozen other states in jeopardy. With us now is a Fox Business exclusive, an attorney who argued this case in front of the Supreme Court, Nick Dranias of the Goldwater Institute. Nick, first of all, congratulations.
Well, thank you. It's a great pleasure to be on, and I'll tell you, I just feel relaxed.
I bet you do. But it was a nail-biter, 5-4. Did you expect such a divide on this case?
You know, I hoped against hope that there might be some sort of consensus that this is just a horrible, unconstitutional scheme. But unfortunately, no, it's the usual 5-4 split. But that's fine. The 5-4 split means that the Supreme Court is a free speech juggernaut.
Well, it's a free speech juggernaut. It's getting close, though. But why is this a victory for free speech?
Well, you have to understand, what Arizona's system did was it allowed the government to manipulate an electoral system to benefit government-funded candidates. In other words, what this system did is if you ran as a privately funded candidate, somebody with citizen support, the government would give $1 in taxpayer money to each one of your opponents for every dollar you spent. And so that basically told you not to spend any money, not to project your message, to be quiet and let the government-funded candidates win. There could not be a worse way to run an election. It undermines the whole point of an election, which is to check and balance government.
So what are the implications now? Because every state, not every state, but a lot of states have their own individual laws that are that resemble the Arizona law. And there's been a lot of anger and anxiety about this. Do you think that this ruling will have an immediate impact on those laws as well?
This ruling is nationwide impact. It's going to knock out similar systems in Maine, in Wisconsin, in Florida, in North Carolina, in New Mexico, and Rhode Island. And it's going to stop these ridiculous ideas where the government should be manipulating elections to make it level, a playing field that's fair for everyone and skewed in favor of government-funded candidates against citizen-funded candidates. It's going to put a stake through the heart of that idea, and it's certainly time has come for that kind of solution to this.
Nick, I got to tell you, with this administration, they don't give up. Even when there are Supreme Court rulings, they find a way to go back to the drawing board. Do you think the ideology of this now would mean that the next salvo comes from the federal government, some sort of blanket law that would be the same as this law, but maybe from a higher office?
You know, they could try, but the Supreme Court now, in case after case after case, has been laying down the law on free speech. I do not think the federal government's going to get away with 1 inch away from the freedom that this court has been willing to uphold and enforce.
So what's next for the Goldwater Institute? I'm sure when you got back to your office, there must have been a line around the corner of people with cases in their hands.
Well, one thing you're right about is the government's always trying to restrain speech. And right now in Arizona, you still have the rest of the so-called clean election system lingering for somebody to challenge it. And that system, I hope, will be the next target of our litigation efforts. We have to get rid of the entire idea that taxpayers should be subsidizing politicians to run their campaigns. Government needs to be kept out of that electoral process. The citizens need to be supporting their own candidates.
Well, you know, I got to tell you, I mean, that sounds like common sense, but it feels like there's more intrusion by the government every successive administration. Do you think this will send any kind of message to the White House, to people who would love to have government manipulation, or, as we said earlier, it's just back to the drawing board?
Absolutely. This is a clear and as any message can come out of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has said to the government, it may not manipulate elections to advance their own government-funded candidates. The government has to have neutral, even-handed rules that do not favor the government-funded candidate. It must allow citizens and their candidates, the candidates they voluntarily support, freely compete and win elections, which is the whole point of an election, to check and balance government, not for government to be manipulating it so that it advantages the very people the government is funding.
Nick, I got to say thanks. If the judge was here, he'd be saying thanks to a victory for the Constitution. Nick Dranias, congratulations. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks.